Hello, Dr. Zadhav. Good afternoon to you.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir.
Hi.
Let us wait for 5 minutes more.
Sure, yes.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
So now participants can unmute themselves. So whenever the principal says, he can unmute himself.
Good afternoon to all.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello, Dr.
Good afternoon, sir.
Very good afternoon to all.
Hello, Dr. Shiv Prasad. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing well, Dr. Ajay, and I'm very happy to see you on this board.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the same. We are all eager to hear you.
My privilege, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Zadhav, quite a few participants have started watching the live streaming also.
Right. 100 have joined. I can see the count which is there.
Yeah.
And remaining are shifted to, I think, live streaming. We'll start at 2:05, sir. Is it okay?
I'm perfectly all right.
Yeah, 5 minutes are there. Let's wait for the participants. They might be joining. And then we can start immediately.
Yes.
So we'll have some inauguration function. Then it will be a speech by you, and then at the last we'll have some question answers. And it will be a vote of thanks by Professor Vijay Kamble sir. This is what today's program is there.
Sounds good.
So we'll start at 2:05. Patil sir, should we start at 2:05?
Yes, I am perfectly all right. I am all set.
Yeah, no issue.
Yeah, okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Ajay sir, we'll be recording the session, no sir?
That's right. So YouTube live is automatically getting created. Yeah.
Okay. Fine. Ajay sir, shall we start? Ajay sir?
Yeah. Hello. Yes, sir. Yes, I'm all set. Please go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. Patil sir, shall we start? Patil sir?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. Good afternoon to all. I am Dr. Makarand M. Jadhav, Convener and Head Department of ENTC, NBN Sinhgad School of Engineering. Welcome all of you for an online national level short-term training program on outcomes-based teaching, assessment, and evaluation. Today we have with us our principal, sir, Dr. Shiv Prasad P. Patil. Uh, all the coordinators, Professor Burande, sir, Head of Mechanical, Dr. A.V. Dumne, sir, Head of Computer Department, Professor S.S. Patil, Head of Electrical Department, Professor Rahul Saman, sir, Head of ID Department, Professor Chavdekar, sir, Head of Engineering Science, and Dr. Prakash Pisep from MBA Department. Along with them, we have department-wise MBA coordinators, Professor Vijay Kagde, sir, Professor Sunita Deshmukh, madam, Professor Varakar, ma'am, Professor T.R. Patil, sir, Professor P.P. Swadkar, ma'am, and Dr. D.S. Patil, ma'am. Today, we have with us eminent speaker, Mr. Ajay Bhagwat, the Director of Inpods India, and who is expert in outcome-based education. Before really we can start with, let me introduce today's guest. Ajay Bhagwat is an tech expert of technologies from program design, academic quality assurance, competency-based medical education, outcome-based education, and of technologies to automate accreditation management of ABET, NBA, and NAC accreditation. Ajay is a passionate computer and mechanical engineer and has 35 plus years of professional experience. He is dedicated to maintaining a reputation built on quality, service, and uncompromising ethics. He manages product engineering, market and business development, and delivery for imports in India for implementation of the state-of-the-art cloud-based technology platform for state and private universities, D schools, engineering colleges, and corporate training divisions. Ajay has special expertise of lean manufacturing. He spearheaded a program of implementation of lean manufacturing principles based on Toyota's standards of manufacturing in a large-scale seamless steel tubes plant. The core objective was to improve quality and plant efficiency. Continuous improvement reduces waste, inventory, and cost. Welcome you, sir, once again on behalf of all of us. Participants, this aesthetic TP4 topics is spread in 3 days. Day one, we'll discuss some program design concepts, the principles of outcome-based education. Day two will continue with continuation of program design concepts. We'll have a top-down program design, course outcome design, assessment and question design. And on the last day, we'll have SEO, PO attainment competitions and outcome-based analysis. We are happy that every day we'll float some quiz questions to you. What are you learning from day-wise? You apply your mind logics, and if you have any queries, we'll take care of the So with this, we'll start the program. So before we start the program, I'll request our principal, sir. So please.
Yes, thank you, sir.
3-4 टॉपिक सर्च केले त्याच्यात
It's a special request for audience to please mute the microphone.
Yes.
So please.
Good afternoon to all. Mr. Ajay Bhagwat, today's our speaker and resource, who is representing Inpods India. Dr. Jadhav, convener, all my head of departments, and dear faculty. It's a very great opportunity, I will say, that this program is supposed to give to all of us. Of course, everyone is eager to get the things from Dr. Ajay ji. So I'll not take much time, but with my limited knowledge, I wish to put some thought. In mind, or with some goal keeping in mind, and whether the system is giving that output or not, we either assess it or evaluate it, and based upon that we declare that our design is correct or not. Okay, so on same line, when we are designing this education system, let me use this word education system. Obviously, we are not without any goal or aim. We are designing it, and to me, whatever education system design is of great importance. Suppose you design some machine, if it gets failure, you can rectify, and that you don't have to pay much for that machine's rectification. But when we are designing a humans, because education system is all related with human being, and if there is some fault, that repair is beyond imagination. So I think this particular system has to be assessed. Education system has to be assessed and evaluated, and therefore whatever goal we are setting, right, and that's why we are calling it as outcome based. So whatever we are expecting to deliver through that system, it is our duty to check whether it is correctly getting delivered or not. So from this angle, I think this is very important session. This is very important FDP. All of us will benefit, and especially those who are education field lovers, definitely they will take it as a very good opportunity through this our FDP. I am very sure the great experience of Dr. Ajay ji will give very good justice to this FDP and his team, of course. And I'm sure the outcomes of this, especially of this FDP, will be of great magnitude, and all of will be very much obliged to him. So my request to all my dear colleagues and friends, that you please utilize this good time for enriching ourselves. Once again, I thank Dr. Ajay ji for kindly consenting your very important and special time for all of us. I congratulate my team, Dr. Jadhav, Dr. Burande, Dr. Tumne, Dr. Patil, Samant, and all my head of departments and faculty coordinators for arranging this wonderful session. And I wish the very great success for this FDP. And I also thank, let me thank, because I could see there are a big number all over India, right? So I'm very sure that all our great country will also benefited from this. With this wish and hope, I hand over this mic to our Professor Jadhav. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir, for your words of advice. And we are happy to inform you that, sir, we have received 100 registration all over from India, from Assam to Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and that too with Jammu Kashmir too. So it's a true national level short-term training program.
Yes.
Yeah. So with
great,
this, thank
congratulations.
you, sir. Thanks. So with this, let's start with today's session of day one, which is the program design concepts. It's over to you, sir. Ajay, sir, it's over to you.
Thank you very much. So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me for this FDP. It's going to be, a great interaction with all of you. I know that quite a few senior academicians have joined this session. I look forward to interact with all of you and learn from you all. I would prefer to switch off my video and but I mean, whenever required, anyone can switch on their videos and interact if required. I'm going to first of all communicate you the outline of this 3-day FDP, and then I will also communicate you the logistics, and then we can get going with the first session. So essentially, the way this 3-day FDP is outlined is it begins with program design concepts, followed by outcomes-based assessments and evaluation, followed by outcomes analysis from the perspective of various accreditations and that an engineering college or other institutions coming under UGC or AICT has to follow. So there will be takeaway from this 3 days session, in regards to outcomes-based education implementation primarily. But there are quite a few ideas that I'm going to share with all of you, which could be applied to the program design concepts. Primarily, that is to address the NAC manual criteria 1, which refers to curricular aspects, and also to an extent to the NEP 2020. Some of the references could be drawn from the policy document and could be applied to the program designing concepts that I'm going to, the ideas that I'm going to share with you. As far as the interactions between us is concerned, whenever you have any questions or whenever you have something to share, and if you would like to interact with everyone, please feel free to post your message in the chat box. Whenever I get an opportunity to look at the chat box, I will make sure that you are unmuted, and or I would read your question and respond if it is for me. That could be the way to interact. And as you must have seen that my team was constantly being following with all the registrants by sending emails and also messages posted in the Telegram group. That was to primarily keep communicating with everyone what how to join this session. So Zoom is the primary platform, but if we run out of the connections here, the others can go to the live YouTube channel. And so since there are more than 1,000 registrations from all over India, this was needed. I mean, only a few of you could join the live Zoom session, and others can go to the live YouTube channel streaming. So that's the way this logistics is going to be is being managed by my team. And after every session, there will be a quiz. My team will communicate the link to this the quiz for each day, and all are requested to attempt it. It's not going to be more than 20 to 25 minutes, in my opinion, maybe less than that also. But there are a few descriptive questions also, which might need some thinking to go in, and probably that might take some time. Otherwise, it's not supposed to take more than 10 minutes for that quiz. That is just to for everyone to just quickly apply whatever we learn every day. That is about the quiz. And when it comes to certifications, obviously my team will look at all those responses, and they will take a decision about the certifications issues. Any questions so far? Please feel free to keep posting those. As far as the first day's outline is concerned, this is in front of you. I believe that you can see my screen, right? Since today we have around 75 minutes to go, I will plan this discussion accordingly. This particular slide deck is specially designed for finding out some relevances from NEP and NAC manuals and some other global references, and then we are going to see how the changes happening around us are going to impact the program designing process in general. And then we will, with that reference of global references and other references such as NEP and NAC, let's see what challenges we are likely to face in regards to program designing. So that's the first point of the day. and then we will, we can take a case study of program designing and see how it helps us think about our day-to-day program designing process. I would like to start with a reference to quality assurance of educational processes. This is something that is evolving in our country, and there are references taken from other industries when it comes to quality assurance. Obviously, manufacturing industry was the pioneer in this. They started with a concept of quality control to begin with when the industry era began. And then they realized that quality control alone is not going to help them. What they actually require is total quality management. And that gave us the birth to the idea that they must move from product to the process. The process has to be cleaned up. Process has to be emphasized, and that was nothing but a move from quality control to quality assurance. And when it comes to education domain, obviously, these ideas were to be borrowed, but also these ideas have to be aligned or customized to the requirements of education domain. So obviously there could be some disagreements. Dr. Shiv Prasad just mentioned that we're dealing with human beings and not machines. And obviously, some people argue that the parts of the education system which are easiest to measure may not be the most important part of educational processes. And what is more difficult is creativity, innovativeness, perseverance, and so on. And how would you measure it? And unless and until something is measured, improvement is not possible. So that's why there have been some disagreements in regards to whether all these quality manuals and accreditation manuals and processes, are they really going to help us improve the quality of education in general, right? That has been the debate, and this debate is likely to continue. And through such a debate only, we will have a better system, in the future. However, quite a few attempts have been made globally to identify certain ways, frameworks to improve the quality of education. At the end of the day, obviously, continuous improvement is must be the theme, right? Must be the motto. And we have to move from stage 1 to stage 2, and so on and so forth, followed by each step that we achieve, we have to go to the next step, and upward movement has to be seen. Obviously, education domain cannot be separated out, and naturally there has to be some agreement, some framework which all have to embrace, believe into, and use that to continuously improve the educational processes. So such attempts have been made by UNESCO or UNICEF in the past, and the framework that I found most relevant is the Dakar framework. And this is a name of the city near Senegal, and this framework is known as Dakar framework because probably this conference must have been conducted there, and this framework must have evolved out of the discussions in that conference. So this talks about the 5 dimensions of the quality: learner, environment, content, process, and outcomes. And it is believed that if we focus on these 5 dimensions, there is a good chance of improvement in the quality. So I tried to map this with our NAC manual, but others, you can also try to map it with other accreditations and ranking manuals or NEP 2020, just to see whether these 5 dimensions are referred there. And at least, I found a good relevance and reference to NAC manual. See here. So learner is the dimension, first dimension. I found that in the criteria such as student support and progression, teaching, learning, and evaluation, is a direct relevance of learners there. It's a learner-centric education, and hence you will find those references there. When it comes to environment, I found that there are quite a few references in research, innovation and extension, infrastructure and learning resources, governance, leadership and management. You will find quite a few references to environment. Then if you look at content, curricular aspects, research, innovation and extension has references to content, process, teaching, learning and evaluation, student support and progression, institution values and best practices. You will find references there. And outcomes, curricular aspects, once again, teaching, learning and evaluation. These are loaded with the criteria, key indicators and metrics related to outcomes, attainment, improvement, continuous improvement, identifying the weaker students with respect to the outcomes to be achieved by them. So I at least found these references, So we also are trying to use this Ducker framework in our manuals of accreditation, incidentally. So another important aspect of our all these manuals and quality assurance is that we are moving towards learner-centric education. So from input-based to output-based education is what our transition is currently. And that is why all these efforts that we are taking, we are spending valuable time of ours in engaging in dialogues like this are essentially to be part of that transition of making our education more learner-centric. So now still the question remains, how do we know that quality assurance improves the quality? I found that these are the 3 steps probably involved into this. The first step is related to research. So obviously to answer this question, which is not very difficult to answer, in a few words or sentences, we need a good amount of research going in here. So maybe it is related to new to our country. Obviously, outcomes-based education. This movement started 7-8 years ago. When I used to go to some of the prospects to meet the educators initially in 2012-13. That was the time when we started implementing outcomes-based education and in our technology platform. So I mean, I found quite a good amount of lack of ignorance about outcomes-based education during those days. Now everybody talks about it. And so this transformation happened over a period of last 7 to 8 years, but it has taken a lot of time. In developed countries, outcomes-based education exists since last more than 60 to 70 years, if not, definitely at least 50 years since then, they are implementing it. So the amount of insight that they have is obviously far higher than what we have today. So a lot of research has to go in, and we have to come out with our own correlations and findings and insights into whether educational quality assurance processes such as Ducker framework or all other our accreditations and ranking frameworks, whether they really help us improve the quality. The second step could be those in favor of quality assurance sometimes assume that it will improve the quality because it is what it is designed to do so. So we obviously have a few people who believe that this is likely to happen, this will improve, and such a positive mindset obviously helps us move, forward always. And if something always emerges out of it over a period of time. So as I mentioned, at the end of the day, research is required, and embracing some framework is required, which also is done by the developed countries. And the reason behind that is that if you want to introduce quality culture in any organization, and if you want to take a completely fresh stand, or in the organization to implement quality culture, then we require to have some reference point, and many times such a reference point is provided by the frameworks, manuals like NAC, NAP 2020, like policy documents. And then you start adopting those principles, ideas, beliefs in those documents. And that is where the leadership comes in picture, the organization comes in picture. They have to create shared values, define those values, and then communicate those across the organization very clearly what those values are, right? And when the organizations move from from the organization to an individual, then it makes a lot of impact. And then that is when you start experiencing quality culture being fully embraced in an organization. Because that psychological effect, impact can be seen only after there is a support and by the organization, by the leadership from the top in regards to implementing those reforms in the organization. And over a period of time, then when it percolates down to every individual, and that psychological impact definitely helps uh, bringing together the total change. Since we are on this topic of using some references from the industry, and then seeing whether those ideas are applicable to education, I wanted to bring up these three references. Dr. Edwards Deming, Shigeo Shinjo, and Peter Drucker. They are the three quality gurus. That definitely I followed them a lot initially during my initial path of my career, and I was obviously fascinated. I used their ideas, and that's the reason I thought of also sharing these ideas with all of you. And I wanted to actually I wanted to draw some analogies from what their principles are. So I found that what Dr. Edwin Deming is saying could be applicable to program design, because he always talked about better design of products to improve the service, higher level of uniform product quality, improvement of product testing in the workplace and in the research centers, and greater sales through global markets. So it is obviously we are talking here uh, about the students, not about the product, obviously, but in a way they are our products, right? And hence, if we are planning to develop the competence uh, for this, in the students, which will help them to uh, also go and seek the jobs in the global markets. Probably that kind of competence is to be, first of all, ensured in the process, and then probably it will be visible in the in the competence gained by the students. And hence, I thought that it could be applicable to the curriculum design process. Dr. Shigeo Shinjo is a Japanese, quality guru. He introduced this principles, Pokayoke and continuous improvement, and focus was on eliminating the West by preventing, correcting, and drawing attention to human errors as they occur. So this is related to our continuous improvement, identifying the weaker students and continuous improvement. And the third reference to my argument here is the Lord Kenwin or Peter Drucker statement, famous statement, which is if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. And that's why we may have to find some method in the madness to measure uh, the effectiveness of the educational process, and then that probably will help us to improve it. And that's why these three references probably I thought are useful for us, for our discussion to follow. And if you look at what the ancient Indian philosophers had said once, about the education is something like this. A student gets a quarter of knowledge from the teacher, that which happens in the classroom, a quarter by own intelligence, which may be referred to self-study, a quarter from the fellow students, which refers to group activities or projects, and a quarter in the due course of time, which refers to lifelong learning. And this also is a good reference for us when we think about the process to follow in education excellence. And obviously, this also is useful for us to think, use these ideas in our program designing process also. So that's where we are now. And in this section, I'm going to introduce you to a concept of case study that has to be taken up by us, and use this case study approach to design a program, a brand new program. Before I go to and jump into this topic section, let me check whether there are any questions here. Please feel free to post your questions. There is a comment about sharing my presentation. I will do that, no problem. Professor Tarun has said in quality assurance framework, teacher component is missing. Actually, teacher is ubiquitous everywhere. Content is delivered by the teacher. Learner is developed by the teacher. Process is owned by the teacher. Outcomes are measured by the teacher. Environment probably is joint, maybe comes from the top also. But I think teacher is ubiquitous. Teacher is everywhere. Without teacher, obviously, this is unlikely to happen. Yeah, I'm going forward now. Thanks for that comment, Professor Tarun. I appreciate that. Yeah, so actually, yeah, there is a comment by Dr. Srikanth. No mention of program education objectives in the present slide. We are coming to the actual, yeah, specifically, that's the starting point, program education objectives. So what happens is that objectives and outcomes, many times this debate must have been done by everyone. The way I look at the objectives are that objectives need not be every time learning oriented or teaching learning oriented. They may not be related to learning goals many times. Program education objectives may be also related to non-educational activities, such as preparing, designing a program for, let's say there was a skill gap observed by the Human Ministry of India, and it is communicated to the educational institutions that we must kind of we have to make sure that certain skills are ensured in our teaching learning process. So this could be an educational objective from the perspective of developing our nation, developing certain skills which are kind of forecasted that might be required 5 years from now or 10 years from now. And those are related to objectives related to building our nation. But those, the reference of that can be then taken to develop the programs, and then it becomes the educational outcome to develop the skills to build our nation. it could be one reference that just crossed in my mind, but there could be better examples of to differentiate objectives and goals. So it's a discussion related to something that I'm not addressing primarily because we are designing a program with the assumption that these program education objectives are already defined, and now we are using these program education objectives to design this program. That is the goal. I did not actually want to go into the process of designing those program education objectives and then come to the process of program designing. And that's the reason to save the time of FDP, I eliminated that part of the discussion. So here, actually, the significant part of the thinking has to go into program designing. And that is why I thought of giving more time to this discussion. So Professor Tarun said that actually he wanted to draw attention that continuous professional development of the teachers plays a vital role in teaching learning process. Absolutely right. So this is actually such attempt that we are making actually, right? Faculty development program is actually meant for that. These are the short-term training programs. So many such ideas are emerging in our country to continuously doing this part of it. So thanks a lot for all those comments. So I'm going to the now to this discussion about this topic. So a few more references here, which will help us look at the program designing process in the right perspective. This is the reference from NAC manual. One of the significant responsibilities of universities and autonomous college is curriculum design and development, and thus are expected to have process, system, and structures in place to shoulder this responsibility. Further, we can say curriculum evolved by university and autonomous colleges comprises program outcomes, program specific outcomes, course outcomes, and it should outline the courses in every discipline, syllabus, organizational details of implementation, as well as assessment of student performance and thereby attainment of POs and PSO. So assessment of student performances with respect to outcomes, attainment of the POs and the PSOs, these words are subtly mentioned here, but these are very deep words. And if you start identifying what the meaning of these assessment of the student performances with respect to the outcomes, the attainment computation of POs and the PSOs and course outcomes, and that's precisely is the topic of our discussion also. In the next today and next 2 days, we're going to have a discussion about what exactly it means and what may have to be done differently here onwards to achieve these goals defined here. The other references that we can easily find in NEP 2020 are, something that is going to impact a lot on the designing process of programs is this expectation. Is very important expectation. The undergraduate degree will be of either a 3-year or 4-year duration with multiple exit options within this period with appropriate certification. For example, a certificate after completing 1 year in a discipline or field, including vocational or professional areas, diploma after 2 years, bachelor degree after 3 years, and a 4 years multidisciplinary bachelor program, however, shall be a preferred option. So it means that the education process has to be extremely flexible. The students should be able to exit the program and join it back whenever they have time or money, resources to continue their education further. And they may or may not join the same institution when they come back. So all such possibilities which exist already in the West are being implemented in India now. There are other such references. Obviously, I'm not going to read each and every point here, but essentially, the stress is on such a flexibility for the students to exit and enter multiple, at an appropriate point in time. The student should be able to take courses from other parallel branches, but not only the multidisciplinary, cross-disciplinary branches also should be accessible to the students. And it means that today our education institutions have a profile of either academic institutions or professional programs, and the students may currently are able to may or may not be, even in the current situation, not in many institutions I have found it, that the students are able to take the courses from other programs. But there are such attempts that have been there in India also since last many years. There are a few universities in India have been successfully implementing this flexibility of choice-based grade system, and that's already implemented by a few universities. But here it is expected that the students of maybe arts, commerce, and science student should be able to take a course even from an engineering program if the student is interested, and that probably is the cross-disciplinary approach that is expected to be here. So such a process is going to definitely impact the program designing process. There is also a mention of value-based education, and however, in my opinion, these values have to be kind of sprinkled over the entire program design, and you did not have to have a separate course. That's my opinion. And there could be some other thoughts also in regards to this. However, in my opinion, there need not be a separate course which is taught in a classroom, or there are some examinations also followed by that. This is something that can be implemented by rephrasing those questions and trying to communicate the value through the questions of our regular courses. This is obviously going to be a different task, but over a period of time, quite a few such questions for every course could be easily redrafted to communicate certain values through the question. So many times our descriptive questions communicate certain scenarios like this, that let's say example of your friend Ranjana complains that somebody has created a fake profile on Facebook and defaming her character with abusive comments and pictures. Identify the type of cyber crime for these situations. So certain things that, what value we are communicating here, that this is not, a desirable kind of behavior of a human being to defame somebody, and hence such an act is considered to be crime. So this is the kind of scenario. If we could try to communicate through our questions that we are drafting, the value is automatically getting translated, and we don't really require a separate time allocation for a course to communicate the values to the students. So that was you may not agree with this. That's perfectly all right, but this is what I thought of communicating as a part of this dialogue with you all. So here onwards, the language that these are the very two important terms that we are going to consistently use in our FDP is that these are the programs are nothing but the the undergraduate program titles that we use: BSc, BCom, BBA, BTech. These are the programs and not the courses, because there has been a practice of calling programs as courses, and obviously we need to avoid that. Right. And the second term is courses. Courses are nothing but the subjects taught in a program, such as financial law or operating systems or theory of machines, structural analysis. So, and hence we are going, whenever we refer to course outcomes, they are at the level of a subject. Whenever we refer to program outcomes, they are at the level of the undergraduate program or postgraduate program level outcomes. Quickly, outcomes are the education. Outcomes of the education are what the students should be able to do at the end of the program, course, or an instruction unit. And outcomes-based education is an approach to education in which decisions about the curriculum are driven by the exit learning outcomes that the student should display at the end of the program. So this is actually the main reason of inclusion of program designing topic in our discussion on outcomes-based education. So teaching, learning, assessment, and evaluation. When we think about that, actually the discussion has to begin at the program designing, because outcomes-based education is an approach to education in which decisions about the curriculum are driven by the exit learning outcome. So curriculum design means program designing, and for that exit learning outcomes have to be first of all decided, and then based on that the curriculum has to be designed. So today when we are implementing the outcomes-based education, we're retrofitting the previously designed programs, and that's why many educators are finding this process completely unnatural and irrelevant because of this retrofitting of the previously designed programs into the philosophy of outcomes-based education. But when we start revising these programs here onwards, because of the changes occurring around us, at that time we have to start implementing the these practices, appropriately, and then over a period of next 3 to 4 years, all programs will undergo a complete makeover. And likewise, whenever you get an opportunity to design a completely new program, that obviously then is the greatest opportunity for implementing it, in the correct, right manner. So now here onwards, we will take this program design case study approach, and I would request all of you to wear a cap of a program designer and think about a responsibility given to you, of designing a program. So it doesn't matter whether you belong to an affiliated college, and it doesn't matter whether in next 5 to 10 years you will never get a chance probably to design a program by yourself. It may not be probably possible if you are recently have joined the field of education, but I'm pretty sure that we can still play a role, because if we have an aspiration of doing something like this in the future, probably we can still kind of visualize that we are and then anticipate and think about what steps we may have to take to design a completely new program. And from that perspective, from that mindset, you can look at this process. But those who are doing this activity as a part of their day-to-day responsibility, I'm pretty sure that they will find this process very interesting. And just in case you find some irrelevance or something that is misaligned with the real world education process around program design, please feel free to share those errors or gaps in my understanding of such a process. Thanks a lot. I do refer to graduate attributes when I think about designing a new program. And because that's a global reference that is accepted norm by many educational researchers globally, and they tend to use this as a standard list of graduate attributes to be achieved by the students, and hence it is called as graduate attributes. You may also call this as student learning outcome generally, and these are applicable to all the disciplines of education, higher education. And obviously it is applicable to academic programs, and also professional, even health sciences program also can use this as a reference. But they may not find all these graduate attributes useful for their program that you are going to design afresh. So we are talking about a completely new program. Think about any program which belongs to your the discipline of your higher education. And I tend to think that, okay, I would try to design a program related to artificial intelligence maybe. But likewise, you can think about any such program which you may want to design, and based on that, look at it. These discussion. Please follow this discussion from the perspective of designing the program. So, if this is our first reference point, you can find that, okay, there are three categories of these program, rather graduate attributes. There are certain characteristics defined here, and we have to think about, okay, are these relevant for my new program? That's the first question that I am going to ask myself. And then I will definitely find quite a few of these relevant for my program. So I'll pick and choose from here. But before that, I must understand why these three categories are there. Is there any relevance? I do definitely find that there's a lot of relevance there, because these three categories actually are created with respect to the knowledge dimensions they belong to. And these are the knowledge dimensions: factual, conceptual, procedural, and metacognitive knowledge. These are the four dimensions which education researchers have been referring to always. And they actually belong to cognitive domain, psychomotor domain, and affective domain. So knowledge, which is typically referred to as disciplinary knowledge, and the dimensions that are used here primarily are factual and conceptual knowledge of any discipline, and that belongs to cognitive domain. Skills requires a procedural knowledge, and hence it is related to psychomotor domain. And metacognitive requires emotional intelligence, and hence it is related to affective domain. So that's the reason, primarily all educational processes have to think about these three categories of the outcomes finally the students have to achieve at any level, at the course level as well as the program level. And that's why all over the world, these three categories are always taken into account when you think about educational outcomes to be achieved by the students. This is a quick definition of what these four dimensions of the knowledge are. Factual knowledge captures discrete, isolated content elements, terminologies, knowledge of specific details and elements. And conceptual knowledge comprises classifications and categories, principles and generalization, theories, models, and structures of concepts. So when somebody starts connecting those dots of factual knowledge, which are lying here and there, we know certain specifics about those factual knowledge, but when we start connecting those two dots, start finding out the relationship between them, probably at that time our concept gets developed. That's what we say, right? When it comes to procedural knowledge, it includes skills and algorithms, techniques and methods, as well as knowledge of the criteria used to determine and justify when to do what within the specific domains and disciplines. And metacognitive knowledge encompasses strategic knowledge, knowledge about cognitive tasks, including contextual and conditional knowledge and self-knowledge. So that's why quite a few, even program outcomes such as a team player is related to metacognitive because it requires not only understanding leading ourselves, but also to be able to communicate with others and be able to gel with them as a team member. So that requires a little in the sense it requires the ability to connect with others, and hence it is about the self knowledge. It is also another example could be if somebody knows what we don't know, what he or she doesn't know, then naturally that's the starting point for lifelong learning, and hence lifelong learning is also kind of considered to be part of metacognitive knowledge dimension. So if we have to pick and choose the right outcome for my new program from this graduate attribute list, I will pick and choose the graduate attributes which are relevant for my new program. And let's say I come up with this list. So now onwards, my reference to graduate attributes is over. I don't have to now further worry about graduate attributes. So now I have taken the outcomes for my program. So this is my list, but I may not be, still doing the justice, in regards to the complete set that I require for my students, my students to achieve. Because I'm preparing the students for global market. I'm preparing the students for certain skills and competence that they will have, so that one of the few things that they in the sense my students will aim will be such as going abroad for higher education maybe, or taking a job in multinational company, or they themselves want to become a self-employed person, or they just want to be socially recognized, because of the program they have undergone, which is designed by me. And hence, to fulfill such aspirations, I must make sure that the outcomes that they would achieve are comprehensive. They are meeting these requirements. So hence, I have chosen certain ready-made references, and now I need to find out what are specific to my program, because these are generic ones, right? These are applicable to any program, engineering, non-engineering, whatever. And so hence I need to find out something very specific to my program, and that's precisely what I'm going to do now. Is it something unusual process? No, not at all. You can find similar thought process already discussed in NAC manuals. If you go to the last few pages of any manual, you'll find these references. So what is given by NAC is they have given default program outcomes, something very similar to what I have chosen. And then they have given program specific outcomes for zoology and economics. And very nice, very beautifully designed statements. So you can to take a look at the program outcomes, which are default program outcomes given by NAC, which are common for both zoology and economics. So what are they? I have listed it here: critical thinking, effective communication, and you will be surprised to note that they're also exactly as per the graduate attribute list, because this is globally recognized as the great reference to the the graduating attributes the 21st century students should achieve. And naturally, all over the world, this is taken as a reference when it comes to identifying the program level outcomes. The same thing is done here, right? And then they have, you must have used graduate attributes to identify the program outcomes. And hence, you will find that there is a direct mapping here. Now, then what is different there? Which is not there in the standard. program outcomes list, which are the specific to BSc Zoology. And you can see here, two of the specific program outcomes are related to knowledge and two are related to skills. These are the references given in the NAC manual. And very nicely designed. Let's read out the first one here. Understand the nature and basic concepts of cell biology, biochemistry, taxonomy, and ecology. This is knowledge specific. Let's read this skill one. Analyze the relationships among the animals, plants, and microbes. This is analysis, and that's why this comes to skill. And understand is lower order thinking, so it goes to knowledge here one. It doesn't mean that that's the only way to look at it, but typically this is how it is done. This is how these statements are designed. So that's how actually perform procedure is also, it's related to when to do what, right? And then this is about the procedures. So that's why psychomotor, that's why skills. So these are specifics to zoology. Likewise, economics will have its own specific program outcomes. So that's why these are called as program specific outcomes, because they are specific to the curriculum that you are going to design for preparing the students for economics or zoology or artificial intelligence. And so that's why you would choose the relevant, appropriate program outcomes related to the discipline of to which this program is associated with. So at the end of the day, what you are coming out with is the program outcomes which the students are going to achieve. So this is your comprehensive list, which is a mix of the standard set of program outcomes and the specific ones. But at the end of the day, what are these? These are nothing but the program outcomes, right? We don't have to continue to refer them as program specific outcomes. There is no need of doing that, because part of it is coming from your graduate attribute list and part of it is coming in reference to the curriculum that you are planning to design. And hence it gives you a comprehensive set of program outcomes, which is nothing but the outcomes to be achieved by your students by end of the program. And from the students' perspective, they are nothing but the same. So we should not unnecessarily confuse, differentiate, and contrast, right, the POs and the PSOs. It is just a mechanism to identify the right set of outcomes to be achieved by the students at the end of the program, and hence the process is little different. But once you mix them, they are nothing but the program outcomes. That's it. And from here onwards, obviously, in our FDP also, we are not unnecessarily going to differentiate them as POs and the PSOs. They all are POs to us here onwards. So this is a real life reference. I have taken this program outcomes for students graduating with Masters in Artificial Intelligence. This is a program run by San Jose State University and San Jose. And you can see here, whatever we have discussed just now is applicable here as well. Be able to demonstrate an understanding, knowledge level PO. Be able to tackle complex machine learning artificial, skill level PO. Be able to lead and participate in team. To develop AI and machine learning, affective domain, metacognitive, attitude. Be aware of ethical, attitude, metacognitive, affective domain. Be able to advance successfully in the profession and sustain process of lifelong learning. Again, you will say that this has got affective domain, and be able to communicate effectively or persuasively, skill communication. So this is a skill. So a lot of emphasis on affective domain. There is one of knowledge and two of skill domain POs here, and three of, in my opinion, there are three at least POs related to affective domain. A lot of emphasis is given on, and that is also being observed by everyone today in the manuals designed for for accreditations. You will find that a lot of emphasis is given to the the affective domain program outcomes. There's a reason behind it. I'm going to also bring up that very soon. Why so much importance is being given to affective domain POs these days. So this reflection, obviously, you will find this in the sense the categories of POs are always they come in picture, and you will also find this exactly the same thing being followed by all accreditations and rankings frameworks that exist in India today. So these are the examples of we have already seen this. I'm just going to kind of reiterating the same concept here. So that brings us to the next topic of top-down approach of design. We have a little over 15 minutes to go. I will keep 5 minutes for summarizing this, and then also to wrap up and conclude today's session. So let's continue further for next 10 minutes, and then leave 5 minutes to wrap up and conclude today's session. Also, if there are any questions and suggestions for me, I will take those. I'm reading right now some of the comments by the participants here. Okay, Dr. Venkat has asked, in engineering courses, 12 program education objectives are specified. Actually, you're referring to 12 POs and not program education objectives. Common for all disciplines, but can they be drafted based on the engineering disciplines? Absolutely right. You can do it actually. There is no compulsion that you should use those 12 program outcomes given by the NBA manuals. If you can defend this, your stand, the NBA will welcome you, in my opinion. Because of the to avoid all the noise in the system, they have given you ready-made. Use this. That's it. And then if you are still, if you're not satisfied with these 12 program outcomes, you design 3 to 5 your own program outcomes and have the complete list there, right? That's what is a communication done. But if you are ready to defend that these 12 POs I don't want to follow because they are not, some of them are not relevant for my program, please feel free, defend. I'm pretty sure that NBA auditors will appreciate that stand. Yeah. The next is comment is by Professor Naidu. How to define COs for any course? We are actually going to discuss this a lot in tomorrow's session. We will have a crystal clarity about how to design the COs. It's a very simple process that we have to follow, which is not actually meant for designing the course outcome, but it automatically gives you the course outcomes, for any course. So that's the kind of process I'm going to introduce tomorrow. So this particular question related to CO designing will be addressed. There's somebody unmuting themselves. I'm going to. Professor Srikanth says that even IITs and IIMs have become multidisciplinary. Absolutely, yes. But I know that some of the engineering private universities also have been following. So we have actually designed, given them outcomes-based education. So I know that it's very beautifully being, implemented by them. And recently we are working with a premium private university in liberal arts, and they are also doing it very well. They're following the most advanced concepts defined in NEP 2020. Right. So these were the comments, and so I'm going to. That's it. Actually, if there are more comments, I will would read those out later on. Questions, if any. So let me go to this top-down program design of the programs. So we have seen so far, we have been discussing a lot about how to identify the programs, program outcomes for a new program, and then how that has to lead to the discussion about identifying the courses. Actually, courses are the boxes, logical groupings of the concepts that we teach. So far, conventionally, we are following books written by the various authors, and they become the reference point for the students. We obviously, it's not like K-12 education. For higher education, we always tell students that these are the 4 or 5 books which we recommend you to study, and basically that comprises the learnings, teaching and learning process that we would follow. And these units and these topics which are there in each unit are going to be taught to you. But for those units, those particular topics, there could be any book that we would want you to refer. That's the general communication we do. Even I remember my college days, and I remember that I also used to refer various books for every subject, and the same concept continues, right? Even now, however, if we may have to kind of loosen the boundaries of these courses also at times, because when we think about the curriculum design, certain parts of those the courses are likely to undergo frequent changes. So naturally, the whole book or the content that may not be thrown out, we may have to just replace some part of it, and that could be a process that may have to be followed in the future to make the programs dynamic and aligned to the changes happening in the outside world, very rapidly these days. So these courses, which are kind of some conceptual box boundary line of certain topics which we deliver, have to have some area reference to the program outcomes they are going to achieve, or they will help the student to achieve. And hence, always these courses will inherit the properties of the program outcomes which they are trying to fulfill. So that's the reason I'm showing some colors here to represent how these relationships have to percolate down to every question also. Because PO1, we know that certain POs are related to knowledge category, right? Disciplinary knowledge. So hence, this course will be designed there to deliver the disciplinary knowledge. So naturally, it will also have relationship with factual and conceptual knowledge. So these course outcomes also have to assess, evaluate the factual and conceptual knowledge, whether or not the students have achieved the relevant cognitive level related to this factual and conceptual knowledge. And hence, we may want to limit our expectations such a way that this evaluation will help us appropriately analyze whether the students have achieved the desired cognitive process for each course, for each CO. And that is the top-down approach, design approach. Likewise, if there is a course which is mapping to 2 POs, one from knowledge category, another from skill category, because the content is designed such a way that it is having certain content related to skill procedurals knowledge, and hence it will also have some reflection. Some part of the course outcomes may have to address knowledge category POs. Some part of the course outcomes have to address skill category of the POs. And this will also have reflection in, on the questions that will be designed and the desired cognitive process level the student should achieve with respect to the expectations here. That we have to at least ask questions related to apply and analyze more of the questions, because this course has a relationship with PO6 maybe. So that's the top-down design. So as I mentioned earlier, today we are retrofitting the current programs into outcome-based education philosophy, and that's why we are finding it just as a process of tick marking that okay, this is done, this is compliant, this is compliant. Beyond that, we are not finding any importance of this practice. But if we follow this practice of outcomes-based education, the principles, from the scratch. So if we are designing a completely new course, there is a complete freedom for us to implement it just exactly as defined in the principles of outcomes-based education implementation. At that time, you will find a lot of relevance in this process, and you will find that this is pragmatic, doable, and you will believe that it will definitely help us come out with appropriate curriculum design for a course, for a program. So that is about the top-down design of the program, and I would like to end today's session here. So that gives us remaining 5 minutes for concluding today's session. Over to Dr. Jadhav.
Yes, sir. I think there are 2-3 questions are there.
Okay, I will address those. So Dr. Jadeja has asked, what is the exact difference between graduate attributes and program outcomes? Graduate attributes are reference points for us to take some common attributes which you want your students to achieve. For example, critical thinking is a graduate attribute, and critical thinking is applicable to any discipline of higher education. You take law, you take education, you take engineering, arts, commerce, science. Everywhere the students will require critical thinking as one of the skills to be achieved. So you will take critical thinking from your graduate attribute list. But there are quite a few other program outcomes which your students will have to achieve, which are specific to the program you are designing. So you will mix the program outcomes which you have taken from graduate attribute list with the program outcomes which you will design yourself to fulfill the requirement of your program, and you will come out with a comprehensive set of outcomes to be achieved by the students by the end of the program that you are designing. And that is a conceptual difference between the graduate attributes and the program outcomes. So once you take the reference of the graduate attributes, then there onwards, these are nothing but the program outcomes. That is the only reference point, and then you have to move on. Then onward, once you come out with your own set of program outcomes, which is a mix of standard learning outcomes defined by somebody, which are being called as graduate attributes, and when you mix it with your own designed program outcomes, they are nothing but the outcomes to be achieved by the students by the end of the program. That's it. So that's the only conceptual difference in these two terms. I hope that was okay. Yeah, you can say this as a subset, but let's not get into that kind of specific definitions and here about GAs and POs and the POs. So all we have to remember is that graduate attributes are globally accepted list of attributes to be achieved by any graduating student all over the world. This is kind of globally accepted list, which is also called as 21st century competence. And this is standard because the standards are always global and may not be fully applicable to a particular discipline. For example, if I'm designing artificial intelligence program, then naturally I have to design something very specific to artificial intelligence, right? The outcomes. I have given a reference of San Jose State University, right? So that's the way it has to be looked at. That's it. So just a reference. Once you take a few inputs from that, forget about it. Carry on with your set of outcomes to be designed.
There is one more question, I think.
Which one is that?
It is, I think, he's asking whether we can apply, should we not apply Bloom's taxonomy in design?
So actually, Bloom's taxonomy, I have taken that reference, right, in my discussion here, top-down design. This is cognitive process, and that is nothing but the Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy, Mr. Benjamin Bloom was an education researcher. He invented this idea of 6 categories of the cognitive process. And that is why it is called as Bloom's taxonomy. But essentially what he identified is nothing but the cognitive process. So I am particular about referring that as the cognitive process because that is the most important thing to understand and not as Bloom's taxonomy. And hence, I'm not using BTL or RBTL. These are the kind of terms that are typically famous, but I tend to stick to cognitive process.
And I think the last one is, sir, please tell again about outcomes of education and learning outcomes. Creative thinking should be the part of the skill component.
Yeah, actually, creative thinking is a part of skill only. Absolutely right.
I think
so.
We had questions.
Creative thinking is a skill. Absolutely right. It should be part of skill only.
Today, actually, we had 15 minutes, but we'll use it tomorrow, sir. 15 minutes was being used for inauguration function. So today's 15 minutes, we can use it tomorrow. So we can extend up to 3:45 tomorrow. Because participants are very eager to get acquainted with COPU attainment and how to decide thresholds, target. So that is coming up in day number 3.
Yeah.
But it is a start today. We had with program design concepts. This is, I think, all from today's session, no, sir?
Sorry, what did you say?
This is, I think, all from today's session. So
that's right. I want to stop here because the next topic will require more time, and we will not be able to cover that in 15. So it's logically
more. Today's 15 minutes we can utilize tomorrow.
Yes, not a problem.
Yeah. Okay. I think there are no more questions from the participants. I think we should stop here. Before we stop the session, I will request Professor Vijay Kagde, Mechanical Department ND Coordinator, to propose vote of thanks. Professor Kagde, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Sir, if I summarize the entire session, is it okay? And then I will express vote of thanks. That is fine, sir?
Yes, it will be good. It will be good.
Okay. So, as per summarization of today's session, outcome based on teaching, assessment, and evaluation, Ajay Bhagwat sir has emphasized on program design concept, wherein he started with the quality gurus, which all of you are familiar with. He also quoted, if you can't measure it, you cannot improve it in the form of outcomes. he referred NAC manual and NEP, that is National Education Policy 2020, wherein he emphasized on curriculum design and development and student performance and learning. So there is some external noise, sir. Rado sir. Rado sir.
Participants, please mute your mic. Yeah.
So he initially started with the NAC manual and National Education Policy 2020, wherein emphasized on the curriculum design and development and student performance and learning outcomes, wherein actually he talked about the promoting multidisciplinary courses and asking value addition questions that would help us to build this knowledge and you can say cognitive based domains of the students. He also clarified the doubt about the graduate attributes, the difference between graduate attributes and POs, which consist of knowledge, skills, and attitude, which help us to understand the cognitive, psychomotor, and affective domain of the students. At the end, he also depicted one case study, okay, wherein how these POs can be, you can say, understood, and talked about how we can go using a top-down approach, wherein we can start with the program or program outcomes and correlate with the COs, that is course outcomes, and at the end how the assessment is done. So basically what he was dealing with is that what a student should learn or demonstrate on successful completion of a program at the end. So how to design that program, that concept was discussed. At the end, I would like to thank Ajay Bhagwat sir on behalf of NBN Sinhgad School of Engineering, our principal Dr. S.P. Patil sir, our convener Dr. M.M. Jadhav sir, all HODs, all NBA coordinators, and all the participants who are involved. And I think that is sufficient, sir. Jadhav sir, we should stop now.
Yes.
Okay, thanks all.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Kalpe sir.